Well, good afternoon. How you guys doing? We are here with the Black Wealth Experience, and I have some special guests, as I always do. Today will be Angela Hutton-Hall, and she is going to talk to us about some amazing things that have happened in her real estate business and in the things that she's done and things she's learned over the last year. But first, I just want to remind you, we are having a Black Wealth Housing Summit. It is going to be on June 19th. So June 19th from 5:30 to 7:30. If you don't own a home, you're paying somebody else's mortgage. If you do own a home, then you're paying your mortgage, and that's where we want to get you to be. This is going to be from, they said, from 5:30 to 7:30, June 19th, which is Juneteenth, and we're going to do it at Cross Purpose. Cross Purpose is an amazing organization that helps people get back on their feet. If you go to the blackwealthexperience.org, the blackwealthexperience.org, there is an RSVP button. We want you to fill that out. If you already know who your real estate agent is, you already know who your loan officer is, then go ahead and write their names in there. They'll ask you that question. If you don't know, we are going to put a plan together for you. We are going to make sure that everything that we can do to make sure that you get to experience home ownership, because that is the first step to wealth. It is the first step to generational wealth. It is the first step for you just having control of money in a way that you probably have never had in your life. We understand that you're in apartments probably for all kind of different reasons, but and some of them is just false information. I had just an example. I had a young lady just the other day, grew up in the projects. Her parents, never had houses. Her grandparents never had houses. And her belief was, she asked her family, what do I have to do to get a house? And they all told her 20% down. Well, we know that's not true in today's world, that you don't have to have. That is a myth because there's all kind of programs for our community and other communities as well to be able to help you with a down payment, for instance, which could be the one reason that you're thinking you don't need to get a house. So make sure that you sign up for it. We're going to get you some dinner while you're there. We're going to spend a couple hours with you. We're going to hook you up with a real estate agent if you already have one, a loan officer if you don't already have one, a financial advisor if you don't already have one, an insurance person if you already don't have one, and credit repair if you need that. So we're going to make sure that you have, some of you are ready right now and you don't know it. That young lady that I was talking about already had great credit scores, already had about $17,000 in the bank, already had, the things. She had the job that was paying $6,000 or $7,000, a month. She had those things, but what she didn't have was the knowledge. And that's why we're doing this podcast. That's why we're talking to folks all over, and we're having this meeting, this housing summit. So go to the blackwealthexperience.org, click on the RSVP, get yourself to the housing summit. So today we have a treat. We have Angela here today. Angela's been in this real estate business longer than some of you have probably been alive. Well, not her eye, because we've been alive just a very short period of time. However, when you think about experience and you think about people knowing what they're doing, she knows this business. She knows what to do. She knows the community in ways, our community like you would not believe. And she has a whole bunch of vast experience of helping folks get into homes. And so we want to talk about that today. So Angela, would you just kind of introduce yourself? Give your information, so if they need to contact you, they have that information and how to get a hold of you, and then kind of tell us about why you're doing what you do.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to the podcast, and thank you, Brian, for having me on today. Like you said, I've been in this business a long time, and doesn't mean I'm that old. It just means I've been in business a long time. And I have had my real estate license. It'll be 25 years this year. And I'm also a licensed real estate attorney and been in license for about 35 years. 10 years after law school, I decided to get my real estate license because I just felt like what I was doing in the legal area, I was doing environmental law years ago, but then I decided to go into real estate law. And the reason being is I thought it was important. I know it's important, and it's still important today, that we start building generational wealth, it's particularly in our Black and Brown communities. We fail at that miserably in Colorado in terms of where we are percentage wise. And many people will know the Fair Housing Act back in the 50s when it was passed. It was, we were at a percentage of how many Black owners, home ownership. We're not very far from that right now. And that to me is a travesty. If you are still at the same level percentage wise, where we're not seeing a lot of us, people that look like us, owning homes, then that's a disturbing statistic for me. So I got into real estate because to me, it's gratifying to see people get into their first home. I remember when I bought my first home, I wasn't an agent then. I was not an agent. I bought my first home when interest rates were about 15, 16%. Yes, you heard me. 15, 16% back in the early 80s. And I did a non-qualifying assumption. And what that was, you just walked into the loan from the previous owner and you didn't have to qualify for the loan. You had to have a good credit score, but you didn't have to qualify for the loan. So I stepped right into that, bought my first new home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right in the Montbello area. And I loved that house. And I sold it only because I bought another house, but it was 8.5 years I stayed in that house. So I say that story to tell people that yes, you can buy a home.
Absolutely.
So let's dispel that myth right now. And yes, you should buy a home. As Brian mentioned, whose mortgage are you paying? I'd rather pay my own mortgage because you're building equity at that point. You have something to go back on. You don't, as an apartment dweller, you don't have anything. You have your apartment. You're probably paying for renter's insurance. But think about this. If you had your mortgage and you're paying your homeowner's insurance every year, that's the one sure thing. Yes, property has gone up and down, but the one sure thing is you can count on your property holding value for some reason. You can refi, take out home equity loans. You may need an emergency loan. You may need some money for kids going to college, an emergency medical procedure. So many things can come up. But if you're not a homeowner, you don't have that advantage. Mm-hmm. So let's start with homeowner 101. My thing was, when I got into the business, I really liked working with first-time home buyers because they are excited. They're willing to learn. So that's the first thing I should say. Educate, educate, educate. You need to know the process. You need to understand what happens in the home buying process. Number one, as Brian mentioned in his example with the young lady who he was helping with the home, you probably want to have some savings because I think the myth is that people come into looking for a home and everything is rolled into the loan. Well, let's start there. It's not. There are things that are called POC. Those are paid outside of closing costs that you need to be aware of. Number one is you have to have earnest money. No getting around that. Earnest money means you are putting a deposit on a home that you like, and your agent will help you write the contract. You have to put earnest money, which says you are going to operate in earnest to buy that home. And you have to have that money up front. So there's no way to roll that into your loan. You would have to have that money. So I would suggest at least saving between $3,000 and $5,000 just for the earnest money. I'm going to talk about other POC items, but let's talk about earnest money first. Earnest money, you have to have that in order to put a contract on a home. Let's just make that very clear.
Gotcha. And just to interrupt you and keep the thought, but we're going to help you look at your overall budget. That's the right reason we have financial folks here.
Absolutely.
We want to help you, show you where you're spending money. For instance, we have a lot of folks eating out a lot. If you stop, you're eating out 5 days a week. You stop, eating out twice a week. Within a few months, you have that $3,000 to $5,000 saved up. So don't think it's like, I'll never save up $3,000 to $5,000.
You're right.
Come to the summit. Make sure you're there. We're going to show you how to get that money that you're looking for, even if it might even be a gift that a parent or somebody's giving you. We're going to help you get that money. So don't dispel and start thinking, well, she says I got to have money, and turn this video off right now. You need to keep listening.
Don't turn us off.
Do not turn this off because she's getting into the good stuff. So what are the other POCs?
Okay, so that's a good point, Brian, because I know it probably scares people when we talk about having that money up front. But you're right. You can save that. You don't realize how much you're spending on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. If you're going to Starbucks, if you're buying stuff that you know you shouldn't be buying, what's important when you get ready to buy a home is you need to get that money together. If you're serious about doing that, like Brian said, come to to our seminar, we will show you where you can start putting that money aside. And it's so much easier. It's not hard. We're not saying you got to go out and get a loan, go ask grandma or auntie for $5,000. We're going to show you how to make that work for you. So thank you for saying that, Brian. So the other POC is you have to have an inspection of the home you're purchasing. That is not rolled into your loan. That is part of what we call paid outside of closing. So inspections are running anywhere between $500 and $800, which again, on top of your $3,000 to $5,000, here's another $500 to $800 because you want to get a full inspection, you want to get a sewer scope, and you want to get a radon test. Those are kind of the top three that you want to always get in an inspection, because these three will help you understand the flaws that are in a house. Because admit this, everybody, every house that you buy is going to have a flaw. Nothing's perfect. I don't care if you get a brand new home built from the ground up, you're going to find some issues with that house. So let's talk about that. So get the radon test, get the sewer scope, and generally that all happens with one inspector. So if you have an agent that you're working with, a broker like myself, you generally have those kind of contacts in your toolbox that you can say, hey, I have an inspector who can do all three of those for you and get it all wiped out in one time. So let's just talk about that. So then the third item is your appraisal. At one point years ago, lenders would roll that cost into the loan. They are no longer doing that because a lot of times deals fall apart and those lenders would have to eat that cost of the appraisal. So now they're making you pay for that up front. And those appraisals can run you between $600 and $800 on an appraisal. So now we're talking $3,000 to $5,000 on the earnest money, at least $500 to $800 on the inspection, and maybe $600 to $800 on your appraisal. So yes, it seems like a lot of money, but it really isn't when you're talking about the overall cost of a house and what it costs you to get in a house. So let's just keep that in mind. But again, when you come, not if you come, when you come to our seminar on the 19th of June, we will show you tricks and things to get you there. We will help you to get to that point. So don't be afraid of what we're saying. Be curious and be willing to come and learn. That's part of the educate I talked about when I first started talking. So let's go back. Let's just review real quickly. I said you can and you should own a home to start building generational wealth for several reasons. You should do this. Now let's talk about, we talked about the paid outside of closing. When you see the POCs, earnest money, inspection, and appraisal. For some reason, that gets passed over a lot. I noticed this in my first time home buyers. They're like, oh, nobody told me I needed that. Guess what? I'm saying that today. So you can never say that again. You hearing it from me, Angela Hutton-Hall. You're hearing that from me. Yes, you do have to have that money up front because nobody's going to pay that for you. And if you have to borrow it from somebody, that's okay too. But we're going to show you at the seminar how to get there. And secondly, let me talk about working with a broker like myself. When you're working with a buyer's broker, this is the myth I want to dispel. You think you have to pay us up front to work with you. Let's get that on the table right now. We get paid only when we find you a house and we get paid a commission at closing. So you should be in the mind frame that I'm going to find a good buyer's broker to work with me because guess what? You're not paying us up front. We're here to work on your behalf. Use us. That's what people don't understand. They think, well, I can't buy a home because I can't afford to pay for a broker. I don't know how many times I've heard that, Brian, that they think they have to enlist us by paying for us first. And we're like, no.
No, and if somebody does ask you for money, right? If a broker comes and says, give me $3,000, run.
Run the other direction. Absolutely. Get out of there. Call me. That's not how it works. The way Colorado has set it up is that generally we're paid by the sellers because they want us to bring you, buyer, to them. So let's make that very clear. So when you get a good broker, they're going to walk you through every part of the transaction to closing. You should not be afraid of that. One of the things I do, I make sure I talk to your lender when I first get you as a buyer to say, hey, okay, Brian, how does this person look? Are they a strong buyer? What should we be aware of? Are we ready to go out and look for the property? How much are they qualified for? That's a huge thing. You don't want to show somebody properties that are in the 600,000s and they're already qualified for 300 to 400,000. That's not doing you any service, and that's not doing them a service or anybody. Why are you showing people homes that they can't afford? And you're going to be house poor. So a good broker will make sure they're staying in touch with your lender so that every step of the way, give the lender taxes on that house. What are the taxes? If there's an HOA, what are the HOAs? Any other things? Are there solar panels? You know, there's certain things you got to know about a house when you're looking for it. But a good broker will take you through a house and say, okay, let's make sure we do, you know, look at these items to make sure we are in line with your lender so that we are only looking at homes that you're qualified to purchase. So again, if I were you and I'm a potential buyer, I would get excited right now. Because number one, you don't have to pay for our services as a buyer's broker. Woohoo! We're here to help you. And secondly, you're going to start paying, or you're going to start saving that money so that you are going to be a good, educated buyer. So that when you walk in those homes, you're going to have an assurance that I can really afford this. And we're going to show you how. So don't be afraid of that. I have great examples of people who are first-time home buyers. They've done CHAFA programs. They've done DPA, which is down payment assistance. They've done Deerfield programs. I had a young lady who had never, ever purchased a property in her life. She's 23 years old. She works for the school district, and she was so excited. I said, we're going to find you a place. We closed on her house in January of this year. And she qualified because of the Deerfield Fund. And the Deerfield Funds helps people who have been historically discriminated against in housing. And so they help them if you live in certain areas or your relative lived in certain areas, then you are qualified to get that type of money. She ended up getting a $25,000 grant. You heard me. Did I say it again? $25,000 grant to help her purchase her first home. And she did so successfully. I think she probably only brought maybe $2,500 to the table. If that's not a success story, I can't tell you what is. Now, that's not typical, and that's not everybody, but there are so many programs out there. When you work with a lender like Brian or some of the other ones that'll be joining us, they will show you, hey, there is money out there waiting for you to help you get into your new house. So don't be afraid of that. As a first-time home buyer, there's so many opportunities for you. So let's get started doing that. But I think education is the first thing. Don't be afraid. We're going to educate you on every step of the way through the process. You're going to have finance people there. You're going to have realtors, brokers like myself there, people that can help you with credit repair, all types of things. And yeah, people always like, well, no, my credit's so bad. Well, when's the last time you pulled your credit report? How bad do you think it is? Yeah. What do you know what it takes to get qualified for a loan? You're making assumptions without being educated. I'm going to go back to that every time. Absolutely. You have to be educated about what's out there and what you can qualify for and what somebody can help you with. You know, we're here to help because we just believe that everybody should have the opportunity to own your own home.
Absolutely. And so we're even in the summit, we are going to provide an app that they can have on their phone, kind of like a Credit Karma, but for our community, right?
There you go.
Vita. And as a result, it's going to look at the house. You're going to be able to look at houses on that app. You're going to be able to check your credit. It's going to check your credit, soft credit, so it's not hard pulled. And it's going to tell you, you've done this, you've done what we asked you to do. You are now ready. Because what we realize is, for some of you, you will be ready with the day of the summit. You just don't know you're ready. And we're just going to start looking for a house because you're going to be ready. But for some of you, it's going to take 6 months or a year or maybe a year and a half to be able to get through. But you're going to have a plan. You will walk away from that day on June 19th with a plan to know exactly what you need to do in order to get a house. You know, now if you don't have a job, then that's probably the first step. You got to have a job.
Gotta have money coming in. Yes, income is important.
But beyond that, we are going to work a plan. You know,
That's right.
and it reminds me of two different people. One gentleman that I'm working with now that's going to start working with me and doing some of the loan stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in his 20s, you know, he had some really good education and he was able to buy a condo. A couple of years ago during the pandemic, he kept the condo, created a rental income, and now he
Mm.
bought a house out here off of E470 and, you know, these new neighborhoods that are out there.
Oh, yes.
Off of Piccadilly over here. So he's got a brand new house. Now he's looking about, I want to move to Arizona, and he's gonna
Mm-hmm.
keep one of the rentals, sell one of the houses, and now move into Arizona into a house and start doing business. I mean, and he's just in his early 30s. You know,
Oh
that
my
he's able
gosh.
to do that. And so it is possible when people don't think it's possible. My daughter
That's right.
had two houses already.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she lives in California where, you know, the last house she has, and she'll let me tell you, she said over $800,000 was the price of the house. But her loan's not $800,000 because
Right.
she had a house to sell that had equity in it. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about this those two people are going to be on my podcast. I'm also going to bring on a young lady. I guess she's almost our age. I guess I call her a young lady.
Right.
Single mom. Kids just graduated at the college age. Has never owned a home. Well,
Wow.
on this week, she is moving into her first home that she's purchased, and we're going to go through that process, and we're going to record that on this podcast of her
Very
moving
good.
into her first house. Our community, folks that didn't believe that they could get a house, you know,
Yes.
and you think about how much money people are paying. You know, now at $2,000 a month, you know,
Mm-hmm.
on an apartment, that's 24. You know, what is that? $24,000 a year.
A
You
year.
do that for 10 years. That's $240,000 you've given the
That's
apartment
right.
complex.
That you're giving somebody else.
That you give at a house right now. I mean,
Yes.
there's not too many for 240,000, but bump that rent up to 3,000. That's $36,000 a year, right? Times
That's
that
right.
person, that's $360,000. You
360,000.
paid for that person's house, most likely.
Absolutely.
Or that apartment, definitely that apartment unit. You pay
That's
for
right.
that unit.
You pay for that apartment unit somehow. But see, the beauty of this too, Brian, like you said, you can move from one thing to another. You become an investor. You can have a rental property. Again, this is all part of the generational wealth we want to talk about with everybody at the event on the 19th. So we encourage you, and we hope you're encouraged, because like Brian said, you're not going to leave that seminar with us without a plan. Everybody's going to start at some place. Everybody's not going to come and start at the same level. We know that some people have credit issues. We know that some people have income issues. We know this stuff. We've been in this business long enough, which is why we're here as a resource to help you and bring those entities to one spot where everybody's together. You can ask those questions. You can find out where you are. And I've had people, a lady that I had sent to she was with another lender, and for 2 years he worked with her, but finally got her ready to go. But you know what she did? She was patient. We kept working on her credit scores, and now she's qualified for up to 500,000, and we're gonna find her a home. But it took 2 years. But it's not impossible, is what we're saying. It's just a matter of you making it a priority. Making it important to you. If it's important enough to you, there are people out here to help you get to where you need to be. So the beauty of it is you're not going to leave our seminar on the 19th without a plan. So that should inspire you right there. Somebody's giving you a roadmap to home ownership.
Yeah. And we want to do that for you. It's not, we're not charging you. We're not charging you to come.
We're not charging you. We're
going to feed you. We're going to feed you dinner. We want you to show up because we want you in a home, because it's better for our community. It's better for your kids. You know, statistics and everything show that when children grow up in a stable environment and continue to go to the neighborhood school, that goes to the neighborhood middle school, that goes to the neighborhood high school, their chances of success in life are so much better. I've been working in homeless services over, you know, in the last 5 or 6 years. And one of the common themes of our Black and brown folks that are experiencing homelessness is you look at their childhood and the transients that they had and moving from one place to another and the fights and everything that they get in. And then all of a sudden it translates to becoming sometimes mental health. It becomes homelessness. We need to stop that. The way that we're going to stop that is creating generational wealth. And the way we're going to start creating generational wealth is the first stepping stone, which is home ownership. And if you do not own a home, That means you're paying somebody else's mortgage.
Come on.
Paying somebody else's mortgage, you're not building your own generational wealth. And
that's
the
right.
fastest way to create wealth, I keep saying this on every podcast, how amazed you will be once you have a house of all the opportunities and all the doors that all of a sudden open up.
All of a sudden open.
You can't say that to people. They have to experience. Right. But we're going to talk to people who have experienced it. They're going to tell us what their life looked like.
What their life is like.
About a house. Absolutely.
And I'm glad you said that, because let me say this, Brian, as well. When people think about home ownership, they're thinking, oh, I'm going to wait to get this big old house and I can't afford that and blah, blah. No, we're saying start somewhere. Even if it's a townhome, if it's a condo, you still own it. And then you can move up as you go. So wherever you are, you need to start wherever you are. If it means you're only affording a townhome at this time, a condo, but think about this. That condo, just like Brian said in the example, can end up being your rental property, because you're going to build equity in that property. Yeah. You're going to go up in income. You're going to be doing a lot of things when you become a homeowner, and then you can get to that next house because you've proven that you can do that. But while you're doing that, the beauty of it is you're creating that generational wealth as you go along. You see how that works? Oh, it's a building process.
Exactly. And when you think about it, and I don't know how many you've done this, but some of our millennials who live, whether they're basements or they combine and they have great incomes, but they don't want, they maybe not want all of home ownership. You get that condo. So you, rental. You can still live at your parents' house in the basement if you really want to, with the pool and everything else, but get that house and start that process. Creating that generational wealth, because once you have a home, everything else opens up. And that's I go to these apartment complexes and I see, last time a guy who had a Range Rover and a Mercedes that he's scooping off snow off the top of his car because he doesn't have a garage, right?
No garage.
So he's got, I don't know, $140,000 worth of cars, but are not creating any generational wealth because the car depreciates. It doesn't.
The minute you drive it off the lot, it depreciates.
You drive it off the lot, and you start thinking. And he goes, "Well," I start asking questions. He says, "Well, I don't want to fix a water heater if it goes out." And I'm like, "What? A water heater is like $1,000. How much when your Mercedes has an issue or you have to pay for your $3,000 for parts on it? At least your water." I mean, we will figure out and show you how to get good maintenance and get some warranties or whatever that you need. You shouldn't be worried about the maintenance of a house because you don't pay the maintenance, because you're paying for the maintenance at that apartment complex.
That's right.
I promise you're paying for a water heater that goes out.
You are paying for it in the increases that they do every year. And what do you see the results of this? So, the bottom line here, Brian, is that I think people should walk away from this podcast and all the other ones you're doing is in their minds that this is a possibility for them.
Yes, absolutely.
And that we are here, like you said, resources. We are going to be enlisted in what your future looks like. We really do want to see you be successful in purchasing your first home or purchasing a home or whatever that looks like. Come and find out. If you don't come, I always say this, the more you know, the better you'll be.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know anything about buying a house and you've never really got a chance to ask those questions, we are going to be as open and as transparent and come with the resources that we know you're going to need as you walk through this process. So we're not trying to scare you away, because people will say, well, I'm not coming because I can't afford anything. That's the kind of person we want at this seminar. Absolutely. We want you. Absolutely. We want the naysayers. We want the doubters, because we're going to show you differently, because we've been there. We're boots on the ground. I have been doing this for nearly a quarter of a century. I think I could tell you a little bit of stuff if I've been doing this for 25 years. I got some stories. I have some success stories. I have great success stories with working with first-time home buyers who thought they would never be able to purchase something. So we want you there because we want to be a resource to you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And you think about, I think about it's 2 hours of their time. It's from 5 to
2 hours of your time.
So they're going to be there for 2 hours of their time. They would go to a Nugget game and they would pay a ticket to support a whole bunch of millionaires and make even more money, but not put money into their own lives, into their own pockets, into their own way of creating generational wealth for them. So I would say it's purposely on a Monday night. because we know there's not going to be too many sporting events going on Monday night that
That's
I
right. That's right.
We're doing it the day after the festival. I encourage you to go to the festival.
That's right.
For the Juneteenth festival. Enjoy yourself, but find a way from 4:30 or 5:30
to 7:30
to be at this Black Wealth Housing Summit. So you go to the blackwealthexperience.org, blackwealthexperience.org. Angela, please tell them how they can get a hold of you if they want to call you.
Absolutely. And let me say this as we're ending as well. Invest in yourself and invest in your future. Like Brian said, you would spend money to go to a Nuggets game. We're not even charging you to come to this. And we're giving you free dinner. That's an investment in you. So I wanted to leave you with that thought. Invest in yourself. You will not regret this time to come and hang out with us for 2 hours. You can get a hold of me. I'm the managing broker at City Park Realty. Our office is located in the Citywide Bank building in Montbello near I-70 in Peoria. Doors are open all the time. We have 5 other agents in my office. Our office number is 303-377-1488. That's the office number. To get a hold of me directly, you can always call my cell phone, 303-332-2011. Again, 303-332-2011. You can actually Google me on anytime. Angela Hutton-Hall. Just make sure you put my full name, Hutton-Hall, and my name and number and all my contact information. I guarantee you will show up on a Google search. So do not hesitate to call me. Reach out to me if you have any first-time homebuyer questions. You'd be surprised how many people call me, even other brokers, when they run into issues in their deals. Because again, I have the experience. I've been in this business a long time. But our goal here, and I am so grateful for Brian for putting this together around the time of Juneteenth as well, because we feel like we're going to get a lot of young people and people in general who will be interested in this topic that we're going to work on for the 2 hours. Just grateful that he had the vision, and I'm sharing that with him so that we can get to you and anybody else you can think of. We want to get the house packed so that we can give you the valuable information you need. Again, the more you know, the better you'll be. And again, thank you, Brian, for having me on today.
Absolutely. And thank you for being on, Angela. We are here to help you. That's the one thing that if there's anything that you get to know. So thank you for being part of the Black Wealth Experience. If you go to blackwealthexperience.org, you can RSVP right there. There's going to be all these videos for you to look at for the podcast that we're doing that will get you prepared. Just come ready to learn. And come ready to change your life. And that's what we're trying to do. So you guys have a wonderful day. Look for the next podcast. Angela, again, thank you for being on the show today, or the podcast, or whatever we're calling this, because I think it's going to make a difference in people's lives. So
we'll see you all there. You get it. Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.